Hey, everybody, welcome into another edition of Bold Predictions brought to you by us at Inside Nebraska. The Huskers are going to try to get back into the win column, or get into the win column, I should say, after an 0-1 start, little Dublin debacle, as I call it. How are we feeling, boys, after 1 week of a devastating loss and just sort of, I guess, the fallout from the last week?
It's been a week. It has definitely been some trying times over on the old Insiders board. So we'll see. We're rolling with it.
Yeah, it was Steve, you go.
Yeah, it's just a not a great vibe right now around town. I don't even think like it's the home opener and nobody. It's just like I know they're playing like North Dakota and FCS program, but boy, last weekend's loss just put a damper on everything. I feel like.
Yeah, should we be surprised by the result? I'm not sure. There hasn't been a lot of juice like there has been, like Steve mentioned, building up to this home opener. And I mean, I think we, more than other media members, put in more emphasis on the Northwestern game, and others were like, there's 11 more games to go. I don't think you can overemphasize how important a season opener can be, considering it's a conference opponent, and where in the past this team has not been able to gain any momentum early on in any of their seasons, and that came to fruition once again with the loss last Saturday. So I'm interested to see what the response is and how much, I guess, satisfaction they can give the media and fans with their performance, or even more panic after this Saturday as we go more towards the season.
Yeah, that's the interesting part of it is, like you just said, Jeff, I'm like, I don't know how much we're going to necessarily learn about this team. I mean, if they come out and they're just lights out, hair on fire, and they're just dominant in the first quarter, first half, and it's over by halftime, like, all right, at least that's like a small step of confidence. It shows like, all right, they're going to come out and have the mentality to bounce back. But if this game's close, into the third quarter, then like Greg was saying yesterday, you're going to start hearing the groans. But yeah, like you said, it is just one game, but it's not just one game, the Northwestern one. I mean, I think it would be disingenuous to, after the fact, just kind of log it away as, it's just one game, when it wasn't just us putting so much emphasis on the game, the game's importance. I mean, the players themselves were too. I know Nick Heinrich is just one example in the preseason, was talking about how focused they are, how it's a business trip because they know how big of a game it is. And they know how, after last season's week 0 loss, like how things can sort of like they felt the pain, I guess, the hurt of that loss. And then that was one reason why they put so much weight into this one. And then it feels like the same vibe. So I'm very interested to see this week, more than anything, more than just any individual performance. I'm interested to see how, I guess, collectively they bounce back after. So it was just a devastating loss. There's really no way around it, but they do have the chance to bounce back. We got 11 more of these things. They really do have that chance. But I think the context of, oh no, here we go again, same old, definitely puts a wrench into things. So with that in mind, they do have a chance to bounce back, and we are going to be getting bold here today in our preview analysis of it. I was telling them before they came on, I think we're all sort of in the same boat of what we expect to happen, at least from an offensive standpoint. So with that being said, Steve, what is your first bold prediction?
Okay, so I wanted to kind of look back at last season and last season's lone FCS opponent that Nebraska played. It was against the Fordham Rams. It was a big win for Nebraska, 52-7. And I think there's going to be a lot of similarities there. So for my one bold prediction, I'm going to go with Trey Palmer. We'll have 10 catches for 130 receiving yards and 1 touchdown. Now, I go with Trey Palmer because last year's transfer receiver that Nebraska had, Samari Toure, he had have written down here 8 catches for 133 yards. And it was just a big game from him. He was obviously the best receiver on the field that day. And I think Trey Palmer has an opportunity to be exactly that on Saturday for Nebraska against North Dakota. So Trey Palmer, 10 catches, 130 yards, and 1 touchdown.
Yeah, wouldn't be out of the question. I mean, he had 13 targets last week. I think we're kind of in agreement. Travis Vokalek is that favorite, probably a favorite target in terms of just reliability. I think we were talking about
especially
that.
on third down.
Yeah, third down.
Exactly. And then Trey Palmer's right alongside because, I mean, 13 targets. And I think the next highest was like 7 or 8, maybe. No, maybe Marcus Washington might have had 13, but
Marcus was up there.
Yeah.
He didn't have as much success, and obviously Trey had the 2 drops. But whether you chalk that up to first game jitters, playing 4,000 miles away in a foreign country, I don't know, but I don't expect Trey to have that. I don't expect there to be a lot of drops with Trey Palmer, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I think that first drop was on like the second play of the game, so just like up and before you settle in. So, Greg, what's your first one that we got here?
Yeah, I guess I'm gonna continue the theme of the passing game, like you said, kind of having an explosion. And I'm curious on why we all think that might not be great for the run game. Great news for that, but that's neither here nor there. I'm gonna go with Nebraska having a pair of 100-yard receivers. And for my extra credit, because we talked about getting extra credit, right? So I'm going to go for it and lay it out there. If there's extra credit to be had, I'm going to go with Trey Palmer and Isaiah Garcia Castaneda as the 2 guys that both reach 100-yard receiving for Nebraska on Saturday.
Yeah, and speaking of that boldness, because Jeff went with the Tommy Hill like game-stealing interception on the far hash and everything. And I swear during the fourth quarter, whenever it was 28-24, I was thinking about it, that started going in my mind. I'm like, if Tommy Hill snags an interception here on the far side, because I think there was a play where they threw it that way, I'm like, no way is that going to happen. And then obviously it didn't, but it looks like there's an opportunity for it because I think he had like a pass breakup when they threw it.
He had a pass breakup. Right? Yes.
Yeah, that's
Northwestern wanted to run a fake screen, and so they had like a guy act like he was going to block and then take off to the far sideline. And Tommy Hill was right there. He got the PBU. I'm like, oh my gosh, Jeff almost called that thing. But yeah.
Yeah. So Jeff, what do you got for us this time? Anything as bold and specific as that?
Well, first, I want to say that none of us knew our predictions beforehand with us sticking to the passing. And 2, I'm glad the board elevated me from boob status after my bold prediction from last week. So I'll stick with the boldness here this week. I'm going to stick with the passing game. I'm saying the 2 teams combined for at least 550 yards of passing on Saturday. So 275 average from each team, which I think is very much in the realm of possibility. I like what Nebraska did in the passing game last week against Mark Whipple. I think they're going to do more run game emphasis, but I think Whipple's first instinct is to go through the air, and we saw that last week, and I think they're going to stick with it. But I also think with North Dakota, a couple of things. One is that their best player is not coming from the running back group. Otis Way, All-American last year for him. He's gone. And the 2 best players on the offense is quarterback Tommy Schuster and wide receiver Garrett Mag. The Mag is bigger. He's going to match up well with Nebraska's corners. So I think for an FCS team to come in and win against a Power 5 opponent, they have to rely and lean on their star players, and that's Mag and Schuster. And I think another aspect that could help my bold prediction is garbage time passing yards, because that could be a thing down the stretch. You're going to have those second, third stringers in for Nebraska, and I think you could pile up some yards there for North Dakota.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're hitting on the same point I wanted to touch on. And again, yeah, I was the only one who knew of each one's bold predictions, but I had the same one coming in as far as the passing game because mine is another one on Casey Thompson. I have him. I'm predicting him to pass for over 400 yards and 3 touchdowns. And I honestly don't even know if it's that bold considering what he just did with 355, I think was the number last week, and 355 and a touchdown. I just, like Jeff said, like you want to get the run game established. That's been a huge talking point, obviously, all week. But Mark Whipple came in here, and we know what he's about. He is going to want to pass it up. He's going to want to attack through the air. That's his MO. And I think that's why you bring in a guy like that to sort of evolutionize this Nebraska offense. And after last week, I just don't know if I can feel confident predicting any sort of big run game, or you would expect them to try and use this as a momentum builder in the run game. But also it's something that we were talking about yesterday is they have 5 running backs listed as RB1, and that competition is still seems like it's ongoing. I think it feels like the first 3 games of the year was sort of the plan to let that competition play out, see who the top 2 or 3 guys are who emerged, but they haven't done that yet. That hasn't been locked in. So I still see some like continuity. Maybe, I don't know if issues is the right word, but I just don't see like any continuity with who's going to be taking the snaps, or at least I don't feel confident predicting it. And I don't know if that might lead to more inconsistency. They should, in theory, be able to run over an FCS team and grind it out. And then maybe they do. Maybe they wind up going for just destroying it in the run game and barely touching the pass game. And that makes this entire first 12 minutes of the bowl predictions podcast like, oh, well, I guess we can log that away. But right now, I still feel more comfortable if I'm making a prediction about this offense going with the pass game. So that's my first one. Steve, you got a second passing game one, or you going a different route?
No, I'm going to go a different route. My second bold prediction is that North Dakota is going to throw a wide receiver pass for a first down. Now, I say that because all the coaches talked about last year's game at Utah State. North Dakota went to Utah State. They punched them in the mouth early. It looked pretty good. They were leading 21-7 against a pretty good Utah State team in the first half before they absolutely got trounced in the second half and lost. But when they had things rolling in the first half against Utah State, they were pulling out all the stops. They had a fake reverse wide receiver pass that went for a touchdown. I think that Nebraska's defense didn't have that great of a performance last week against Northwestern, and with the FCS team with nothing to lose coming to Lincoln, they're going to have a lot of fans in Memorial Stadium. They're going to give their fans a show, and they're going to have a trick play, and it's going to go for a first down.
Well, hopefully it's not an end around play. You know how that works out. Last week with was it Trey Palmer was the end around? That was
way too late in the game to be doing that.
They
gave to the short side of the field. Like, that was just a weird play. It's a weird play.
They gave Trey a good jet sweep, and he ran for a first down and got a late hit penalty. But yeah, that one in the fourth quarter, that was not a good one.
It was not one of Whipple's was it genius moments. Scott Frost said that he was a genius play caller. That was not one of them.
And an elite. He's a genius and elite play caller.
Yeah, maybe he was throwing a little sugar his way after, collaboration and whatever it was over the weekend.
So, Greg,
creativity.
We predicting any trick plays from you, or what do you got?
No trick plays for me, but this would be a cruel trick on Nebraska fans because my second one is that this is still a game going into the second half. I don't want to get. I thought about going oddly specific and saying what it's still a game means. I'll leave that up to interpretation and let that be kind of a feel. But I do predict that we get those groans that we talked about in the crowd early on in this game. Like, I just don't, as much as we've talked about the passing game and that being something that can eventually help Nebraska separate, and I do think that they'll put up nice passing numbers, I think that Nebraska may still show an inability to really move the line of scrimmage in this game, which would spell big trouble for them down the road, but we'll get there when we come to it. But yeah, my second one is that Nebraska, North Dakota, still a game in the second half, and then Nebraska pulls away a little when I get to my score prediction.
Yeah, I think I'm going to save my thoughts on that as well for my score prediction. So, Jeff, what do you got?
I'm going to go to the running game here for Nebraska quick. And I don't know how bold you put this in, but I'm going to say that all 5 of the running backs that were as the running back one, all those oars on the depth chart, all of them at least get 1 carry throughout this game. I think, obviously, we mentioned the run game is giving an emphasis, and I think they're going to want to try and get those guys Coach Frost mentioned earlier this week that they want to get Gabe and Ramir back going in that running back rotation. So I think we see all 5 of those running backs get a carry. They need to do it because I think it's going to be really, really concerning if they can't establish a run game in this one against North Dakota. Because you got to remember, with these group of 5 and FCS teams, especially on the defensive line, they're smaller. I don't think their training is as good. And if they can't move the ball against them, it's going to be a long, long year against some of these lines that they'll take on in the Big Ten.
You know, what's interesting, real quick, Zach, what's interesting on that, though, is that it may not seem that bold, but it feels like we always have a game where, or a time where, hey, we've heard about player X all throughout fall camp, and then they disappear. It happened again in week 0 out in Ireland. So it wouldn't be totally shocking if this coming week Anthony Grant doesn't play at all. Like, would any of us be that shocked? I'm not saying that's going to happen. I think that he is still RB1, but that would not be completely shocking. So I don't think that that's, you know, as safe as it might appear on the surface.
Yeah, and that's why when I think it was Jeff who made the Ramir Johnson, or someone made a Ramir Johnson, or maybe it was Greg talking about Gabe Ervin last week, when it's like, yeah, we have all the evidence that supports a prediction like that, but then boom, game starts and keeps going on, and you don't see that player. It's like, all right, well, we were told all throughout the off season about what this specific player how he's improved and everything, and then it just doesn't happen. To sort of round out though here with bowl predictions, what my last when I was covering Ohio State and we did these bowl predictions, it was a running joke because Ohio State had not returned a punt for a touchdown since, I think it had definitely been over a decade, or nearly a decade since they returned a punt return for a touchdown. So every week, my former coworker, Austin Ward, who is now with the publisher of the Ohio State rival site, Dotting the I's. So that's a little plug for the 0 people out there watching this Nebraska podcast to go and check out that site. But he would always predict a punt return for a touchdown, pretty much no matter what, and he was never right ever. So I'm going to go ahead and be wrong about this one and just to kind of suffer points just so I can get an inside joke out there. I predict Trey Palmer to return a punt for a touchdown against North Dakota. And honestly, like with special teams, I feel like that's an area where, I mean, you're supposed to outmatch an FCS opponent in every area, but especially a punt return team where it's athlete on athlete, you get the best athletes on both sides of the ball. They're the best athletes out there for those 11 spots on a special teams unit. So I feel like there should be an opportunity for that. And I'll just, I'll make my first special teams return touchdown prediction here. So shout out to you, Austin. I know you're not watching or listening, but I'll let you know about it later.
I'm going to tweet this to him.
Yeah.
All right. Now we gotta wrap up here with final score predictions. So real quick, Steve, what we got?
Yeah. 51-17 Nebraska.
Okay. Oh yeah. Real quick. The line right now is Nebraska minus 22.5, and the total is set at 52. So I was trying to do quick math in my head. 35.
Steve's got him hitting the over.
What do I not know?
Yeah.
It's like they're predicting I guess they're expecting something along the lines of like 35-17, where 18-point game closer to the line. That would be hitting the total right on the money. So
yeah,
you nervous now, Steve?
I am curious right now, but just looking at North Dakota's defense, they bring back a 28-game starter at corner. He's been an all-conference player, CJ Siegel, really good, I think, but there's not a lot of experience on the other side at corner. There's not a lot of experience at safety. There's one returning linebacker, inside linebacker coming back. I could see, I'm expecting a big passing game from Casey Thompson in the offense. So I'm not really seeing that, but obviously Vegas is Vegas and they know a lot more than me. So we will see, I guess.
But they were wrong last week.
Yeah, we all were.
Yeah, I was just bring that up. We all were wrong.
Sorry.
But we're gonna be wrong a lot on this podcast. I hope people know it's called.
Yeah, like it's yeah.
not called lukewarm predictions, but anyway, go ahead now with that newfound information, Greg. What's your final score prediction?
All right, so my lukewarm final score then is Nebraska 34, North Dakota 21. I a little lower scoring than Steve has it. I still think that you'll see both. I do think and agree with Jeff that you'll see both teams move the ball well through the air, which one of those keys will be if Nebraska can be disruptive in that pass rush game, which we didn't see at all in week 0 against Northwestern. So if they get that cranked up, that'd be encouraging. But I do, like I said earlier, I think this game, I think it's still a game when we get to the second half, but Nebraska will pull away. Casey Thompson has kind of the reverse, and he flips the switch on, gets hot late, and then Nebraska pulls away 34-21.
Yeah, Jeff, you along those same lines? Or are you expecting a blowout?
Yeah, I'm a little interested on that Vegas line because my prediction is not that. I have Nebraska winning 45-21. I think plenty of points are going to go on the board. And I like Steve's point there. CJ Seigel is that 28-game starter on one of those sides, but they don't have a lot of experience at the safety positions. And when you have guys like Trey Palmer with his speed, I think you're going to be able to take a lot of shots downfield. And I think you could be successful with it. So that's what I like about this game. I think both teams are going to move the ball well. But I think as much as we've hammered Nebraska off their loss or whatnot, you got to remember they had 28 points and over 400 yards through three quarters. So, and I don't see that dropping against an FCS opponent like this, like North Dakota. So I don't know where Vegas is getting at. We'll see if they're correct. They were wrong last week like we all were, but I see high scoring.
Yeah, I do too. I anticipate this offense putting up big numbers. I mean, we've already kind of hashed that out in the past game. And North Dakota, it's weird because in my gut, I just kind of feel like I think just going vibe check. I expect, like Greg said, a game going into the third quarter, whether it's 1 or 2 possessions, but at the same time, I expect a blowout in the end. I kind of can't get a feel for it because North Dakota is an opponent you don't really know too much about. It's FCS, and in theory, it should be a blowout, but I'm going in the end. I'm going with a 42-17 score. I don't know. I kind of feel at least midway through the second quarter, I think it's going to be closer than it should be. But at the same time, Nebraska came out hot on offense in the first half last week, and they were rolling. They had the thing humming before that Garcia Castaneda fumble that may have been a fumble, may have not been a fumble, but in the end they turned it over. I mean, it looked like they were headed for at worst a 17-3 lead or 17-10 or a 21-10 lead, I think at the time, right? Was it 14-10? Now that I'm thinking about it, at the time that he fumbled. Either way, they were rolling. They had momentum. And then just sort of got it zapped from them, even though they did stand tall and force that punt right after. But I do think that they could establish momentum early, but I don't know. I'm still back and forth on what I think is going to happen overall in this game. I mean, I think, like I said, big offensive game through the air, I expect, but overall I'm going with 42-17 final score, but I don't know if I'm necessarily comfortable with it, but if it winds up being 42-17, then I might just zap that part out of the podcast and say, yeah, I told you guys all along that was going to be the score. So that's
publisher's rights on that one.
Yeah, that's my prediction. Any final thoughts real quick before we get out of here?
The final thought for me is Vegas has me questioning my life. I don't see that at all. But
a lot of people have said that exact phrase before, Steve.
That is not the first time that someone said that.
I am totally with Jeff here. I look at guys like Trey Palmer, Isaiah Garcia Castaneda, Marcus Washington, and I just see deep shots and crossing routes and making first-time starters in North Dakota's defensive backfield guarding it correctly, defending it correctly. So I don't know. I think a big passing game is in store. So I will be up at night trying to figure out what I'm thinking and what Vegas is thinking.
You've only got one more night to be up to think about it. And my final thought, real quick, is that we did not color coordinate here today, but we are all in various shades of gray.
I think that's kind of indicative of the cloud around the program night right now, and the vibes around the program is just kind of cloudy and gray right now. So, Steve, thank you for wearing white to brighten it up.
Yeah, I was gonna say this is definitely white, but yeah.
Oh, there's a shadow on your right shoulder. We don't need to get into this. How did we get here?
What are we talking about?
We're talking about the different shades of gray in our shirts. Wow, the Inside Nebraska Bowl Predictions podcast. All right. Jeff, did you have any last thought?
Yeah, I did. I'm thinking about it and read a fellow article this week and saying that a high school coach, texted a fellow media member and said that with Frost doing that onside kick, looked like he was bored and wanted to insert himself because things were going so well. How does he learn from that this week? How does he insert himself into the game? Is it a boneheaded decision like the onside kick, or is it a smarter decision when it comes to, I don't know, anything else? But how does Frost learn from this week to kind of, I don't know, not necessarily silence the critics, but kind of calm the waves, calm the water a little bit? How does he learn and improve from that? That's what I'm interested in seeing on Saturday.
Yeah.
And that brings up another one from me. And Zach, you already talked about it. Whatever happens on Saturday, they could win by 80 points. None of it's going to matter because it's against North Dakota and everybody's still thinking about the season opening loss to Northwestern. They can blow out North Dakota and Georgia Southern. None of it's going to matter. It's going to matter what they look like against Oklahoma and going forward. So unfortunately, yeah, I love football, but the end of Saturday's game, it's not going to matter anything. Everybody's still going to be looking at the program and the direction that everybody thinks it's headed right now. And Scott Frost's, I guess, future with the program, no matter a big winner or not. So,
and at the same time, the game result may not make much of a difference, be paid attention to, but I still see this as this is their first step in this iteration of the Nebraska football program. This is their first step in their last chance to show us that it's different, or to show us that things can change. They need to come out and establish, they need to come out and dominate this game and sort of leave no doubt that at least their mentality is all in the right place and that they're all moving in the right direction, and that at least they can bounce back against and do something that they're expected to do and handle an inferior opponent. Because like Jeff sort of alluded to, that I've labeled it the onside kick game, and anyone, I know a lot of Nebraska fans double as Kansas City Chiefs fans, and I'm a Chiefs fan, been diehard since I was 9 years old, and just embarrassing playoff loss after embarrassing playoff loss or heartbreaker. So much so that the games were given a nickname. I mean, the 38-10 game, the no punt game, the no touchdown game, the offsides game. And for Nebraska, that loss to Northwestern is the onside kick game. And I mean, 5, 10, 15 years from now, that's what if anyone remembers that game, if you're a non-Nebraska fan, that's what people are going to remember that game for. That decision is sort of in a national spotlight and locally too. That's going to hover around this program the rest of the season. And it's their choice to decide, are we going to let that decision, that game, that turning point, are we going to let that define our season and then things just continue to go downhill? Are we going to fight back? And Casey Thompson, I think, is the one leading the way of we'll be fine, and trying to sort of keep things optimistic and moving forward. But we will see. And Saturday, I think that's the biggest thing for me, is just to see what the mentality is, how they come out and rebound. But we will see on Saturday, 2:30 p.m. Central Time. Nebraska kicks off against North Dakota. It'll be my first time in Memorial Stadium for a game, and really looking forward to it. And I know these guys are as well. So for Steve Marek and Greg Smith and Jeff Ekstrom, I'm Zach Carpenter at Inside Nebraska, and we encourage you to sign up for Nebraska, our site, nebraska.rivals.com, and subscribe to this YouTube channel, the Inside Nebraska YouTube page. So we'll be back here again Saturday with more written content, more digital reaction with videos and podcasts. So we hope you join us. And until then, we'll see what happens. So we'll see you on Saturday.